Perfect. So first of all, thank you all for joining into this webinar and this discussion. I know that this is a Friday morning, and being able to park at least next 1 hour for this discussion and element around what is cultivating trust and safety as one of the PCC markers and ICF's competency assessment. So thank you so much for joining and looking forward to engage in a conversation. While I am facilitating this, I am going to look forward for your participation, your ideas, and we will cultivate this conversation also together with trust, safety, and a lot of insights. Now, when I was preparing for this construct and thinking through, okay, this is the fourth competency, and we definitely need to be able to understand what actually is something that we'd want to talk about. And as a construct, what I thought we'll probably understand what trust and safety is, and then also identify that from a coaching context standpoint, where does trust and safety play, and what are some of the things that us as coaches and coach can really play up in the construct of our conversation. Now, I'll take a pause and allow us to reflect over what does the word cultivate means. What do you think the word cultivate means?
That it's a process. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
a switch.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you take a little time with it and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I
Okay.
think non-verbally I'm able to say, I'm not able to put it in words.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and that's brilliantly said. I think that definitely does become part of cultivate. What else?
For me, cultivate means nurturing.
Okay, I love that. Yes.
Yeah, I would say like the picture you shown, it is like planting something and allow it to grow.
Yeah, yeah. True. And for me, and all of these three things that you said, but in addition, one thing that really stands out when I reflected on cultivate trust and safety is that it's an ongoing process. It's not something that you start in the beginning and then it's done through the conversation that you are engaging in, but it's something that you are cultivating, that you're nurturing, that you are seeding, sowing, and also bringing in onto the conversation throughout the conversation and the coaching that you're doing. The next important word is trust. What do you think? What is trust?
Varun, how do I feel trustworthy? The other person is, when I feel, there is a kind of a feeling wherein, you want to just discuss anything with that person and feel secure.
Yeah.
So it's about the security of that things will not, that person will.
Is it my connection or Neha's?
I think Neha's.
Okay, while Neha's back, any thought, Ramya, Anita? Sorry, Neha, could you repeat because you were actually breaking out?
Yeah, you're on mute.
The internet connection got unstable. It's fine now?
Yeah.
Yes.
What I felt was, for me, trust is security, security of being able to share with that individual without in the mind that, this would not go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I will also resonate with that. I think the security factor, believing in the other person.
Okay. Now there's an interesting, how many of you engaged in trust fall activity. I mean, the image actually represents that. You've done that, Neha?
I tried, Varun. I could not do it.
Okay. All right.
I have heard of it. I didn't participate in.
Okay. All right. Have you heard of it, trust fall? So broadly, trust fall activity, and you can do it in different forms, right? One form is what you see, but the real form of activity in a team building is where you climb up to a higher pedestal and look towards the opposite side and fall backward. And it is your team who's supposed to catch hold of you and save you from getting injured. Now, in coaching also, it is a lot similar because when somebody is demonstrating the courage to, you know, come ahead in the dialogue and conversation with you and is wanting to fall and become vulnerable, giving that person that comfort that I'll take care and we will not break neither the bones and nor the emotions. And there's another element, as I was reflecting in trust fall activity is that let's say, even if there is a fall, even if there is the person who I'm engaging with or is having conversation, I will be able to also get care, being taken care if there's something that goes off. So the person, even if something goes off, I'm able to take care. So trust definitely plays a very important role, and we'll build on it as we move forward. Let's talk about safety. What's safety? How do you ensure safety?
The
Thoughts?
word no judgment is coming to my mind
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about safety.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I
Okay.
just remembered something with regards to trust. May I share?
Sure.
Because
Yes.
it's relevant. So we did a trust fall thing in one of our outbound programs, and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of right now flashed to me is so I did it with two people. Okay,
Uh,
with this person who I got along very well with. In fact,
mm-hmm.
the whole office would talk about it because we were so thick together.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, when I did the trust fall activity with him,
Mm-hmm.
I did not feel the trust.
Okay. And why do you think so?
I don't know. Whereas there was this another lady with whom
Mm-hmm.
I very sparingly engaged, matlab, hi, bye, coffee,
Mm-hmm.
once in a while. And somehow, it, when she held, it just felt that nothing would go wrong.
Go wrong.
So I think from a coaching perspective also,
Yeah.
so it's not necessary that whoever is very close to you will
Mm-hmm.
necessarily be the most trustworthy, because
Mm-hmm.
trust is a very different thing, if you know what I
No,
mean.
that's very powerful, Anita. Any thoughts, anybody else? I think it's an important reflection, actually, from our coaching. Any thoughts, anybody? You remember we said one word, cultivate, and which is continuous in the process. And building trust is not a one-time activity. It is an ongoing activity in your coaching conversation. I think that's very powerful, Anita, to what you said. But also, a lot of times when people engage, because when we engage in a coaching conversation at the onset, we don't actually know each other. Sometimes we're just strangers who are engaging in conversation, but there's a leap of faith that the person may take. But as a coach, it becomes our responsibility to be able to create that safety space. And that's where the word safety becomes important, right? How do you non-judgmental, like Anita, you mentioned? What else can you do? What's your definition of safety? Geet, do you want to share? Okay, I think she dropped out. Neha, Ramya, safety. Okay, go ahead.
It's about creating a space wherein a person feel comfortable,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
And no matter, what I have experienced, and I would like to share it here, that, when you tell to a client and you're meeting, you are coaching it for the first time, you say that, it's a non-judgmental space, you can trust this space. At that point of time, the whole genuinity needs to come. Otherwise, the other person will never say. And it reflects. If you are
True.
not saying from your heart, mind, and soul,
Mm-hmm.
the coachee catches that. So I think safety is a kind of a space you can create in a coaching conversation.
Sure. Thanks for sharing that. And we'll build on that from here. All right. So coaching and cultivating trust and safety is as good as a coachee actually experiencing that blissfulness of being vulnerable, being creating, or having a conversation in a non-judgmental environment, as if there's nobody, but there is somebody to hear. And there's nobody because nobody's judging me, but there's nobody who's going to hurt me. So I think that entire process and experience for the coach is one of the key competencies for us as ICF coaches to be able to delve into, where the coachee can actually talk about anything that they would want to. And I think that for me is a very, very powerful thought. And a lot of times, trust and safety you would experience when there is absence of it. When there is lack of safety and lack of trust is when you realize the importance of having trust and safety. So before that actually becomes a situation, how as coaches we're able to get into a space where we build that trust and we build that safety. And there's an interesting quote that I think makes a lot of sense by ICF, that trust and safety cultivation actually is all about partnering with clients to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintaining a relationship of mutual. The word mutual is very, very important, is respect and trust. So it's not just about the coachee, but it's also about the coach experiencing the same space in the construct of cultivating that trust. Okay, what is this whole competency? It actually, as I reflect over it, is also foundation of the coaching, because if you do not have trust or if you don't feel safe, you're actually going to not engage or have a very effective coaching conversation. And for the client to explore aspects which are very personal and deep seated, and this for me is a very important space based on my experiences, that if a client has to really explore their personal deep seated thoughts, because actually we are helping them explore themselves and things that may not be very comfortable. And in the process, we create a very safe space for them to be vulnerable, to be honest, and in the process. So that for me is the overall construct of, cultivating trust and safety. All right. So the question that comes in everybody's mind will be, okay, so we talked about trust, we talked about safety, and we talked about cultivating it continuously. How do we do it? There are three ways with which we can, and we spoke about this in bits and pieces. But overall, if you are engaging in a coaching conversation with a coachee, there are three things that are very important. First is the coaching presence, where you are not just aware of the coachee, but you're also aware of yourself and you're personally present in the conversation completely, both through head and heart, and there is absolute attention. And which is where the next element of listening, being able to listen through your heart and also the head, that you're able to bring in balance between the conversation. There are no interruptions in the conversation. There are no judgments in the conversation. And that for me is very, very important, because it actually ties back to the dialogue that we had, that the client needs to feel that they can explore everything and anything, and especially things that are very personal and deep-seated. And creating that space where they could share that vulnerability is actually important aspect or an outcome of when you're really listening effectively. And one of the things that really stands out is when you have the presence in the coaching conversation, when you have listening effectively happening, but then also expressing and stating it. Because in the conversation, if you realize that you're not expressing or if you're not speaking and sharing, demonstrating support or encouragement, the coach may feel a sense of, or the coachee may feel actually a sense of fear, judgment, thoughts, where the person may feel, okay, maybe I'm not getting the safety space or that encouragement to continue to be vulnerable. I'll take a pause and look for thoughts. What do you think? Makes sense? Have you experienced it?
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
Have you? Go ahead. Sorry.
so in stating and expressing, so there have been times when it's not like I didn't want to support the coachee, but I have felt, oh my God, why is he making a big deal about this? And move on. You know, especially like quite some time back, there was this relationship issue that a guy was bringing up. And
Mm,
clearly the girl was not into him. And I'm
mm,
like, move on, yaar. Why do you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you? But for
mm,
him, you know, that problem was very real because he was so much in love with that girl. So
mm,
I feel like sometimes I have faltered in almost all of this. Uh,
mm,
but of course, it makes sense.
mm.
And I'm letting not, like, I'm increasingly getting out of my own way.
Ways. Yeah. Sure. Thank Anita for sharing that. I think that's uh, I appreciate. Anybody else? Anybody who's experienced Neha, Ramya? How have you experienced these three things as a coach?
Very tough to just manage all these three expressions. One easier said than done. I
Yeah.
have experienced a lot in terms of judgments, in terms of interruptions, in terms of, you know, maybe holding, want to say your opinion. So,
Mm-hmm.
but over the period of time, it comes with practice, and that's what we are in
Right.
the process of.
Yeah. No,
But
true.
a lot of relevance for sure.
I actually had one client last week and he was struggling with his weight management. And in the conversation, so I'm, engaging in the conversation, I'm actually paying attention, not wanting to make a judgment, not interrupting him. And then suddenly he came and he said, you know what, I just don't want to do anything about it. But yeah, it's a concern for me. So in the mind, I was actually, you know what, then maybe you really don't want to, lose weight. And maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about something else. But then I took a step back and I realized that maybe I am forming a judgment. And before this judgment becomes a part of my actions or my conversations in any shape or form, directly or indirectly, and hence creating a safety net issue, is when I took a step back and I realized, okay, I need to tell myself that this is not about me. This is his story. This is his experience. But yeah, it definitely is something that requires a lot of practice, and that obviously will come as we continue to move into the journey. So as part of this competency, there are four broad, markers, parameters that ICF evaluates us, and we'll quickly delve into those parameters and see how we could and how we may come across and sound when we are wanting to address these four markers in the conversation. So the first one is a very, very powerful one. Coach acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process. Now, as I say this, I also realize that if you don't do it, how may it look like? If, for example, you don't acknowledge, you don't, celebrate, or you don't address the client's unique talent, insights, and work, and like this image, it remains, unaddressed, not becoming part of the conversation, not becoming part of the pool of the conversation that you're wanting to engage and bring the person back into the conversation or really be vulnerable with you. And hence, it becomes very important that as a coach, we are acknowledging and respecting what the client's unique talents are, the insights that he or she or they are bringing, and really help and partner with them in working through the coaching process. What are some of the statements that we may uh, leverage to talk about is, I notice that you're extremely reflective mind. I'm hearing a deeply caring person behind it. You have had an excellent connect with your students. So being able to acknowledge and really respect also to what they are bringing into this conversation, because at the end of the day, that person has had a lot of experience and there are good things and effort that the coachee is bringing into the conversation. And that itself is a good cue for us to build that trust and safety and make the person feel that I can trust this coach because he or she or they have actually the right intent in their mind when they're engaging in this conversation, and hence building that safety. Another one, which is also, and especially when conversations and coaching dialogue can really get into uh, unsafe vulnerability, actually in a space where the person feels, oh, you know what, it's going to bring about a lot of deep rooted concerns and issues that I've had in the past on the table. So the coach should be able to demonstrate and show support, empathy, or concern for the client. One of the client that I actually was engaging in a conversation with, it was a very simple conversation about, her and her attire, considering she'd gone through a gender reassignment surgery and, from being a man to a woman, she'd gone through the process. And her concern was that, I don't know what attire I should be wearing, and I'm trying to figure out, will this be judged or what's the right thing to do now that I've actually set up, I've gone through the gender reassignment process and I want to be able to. And as we got into the conversation, actually it came out that it is not about that. It is just the process and the journey the person is going through. And that for me became an important element to anchor, where you anchored on, okay, there is a need to reflect and have that person feel at ease through empathy and demonstrating concern. Have you experienced something similar and something powerful that you may have done, which you think all of us can leverage?
Not as powerful as this, Varun, and I'm curious to know how did you manage that situation?
So actually, Neha, that conversation went on for about 3 sessions. Because the first conversation, when it started to, we started to engage, the person actually just became so vulnerable and that she kept crying. Because when we started talking about the dress attire, obviously the questions that, okay, why is it important? What is it that you're wanting to, achieve? And then it all came down to, while that gender reassignment has happened, but it's also a flashback of, the challenge the person has gone through. But there is also sometimes the fear of what is coming. And maybe sometimes that can also be fearing. And hence we actually had to pause, Neha, to your question, multiple times, get into 3 conversations. And then, of course, the person also decided that this is about something else that I need to be able to address separately. So, yeah, it was tough. The conversations went on almost for about 2 hours. Any powerful experience that you've had where you've demonstrated empathy, support, or concern and actually worked out well?
I don't know about what I have shown in terms of, support, empathy, or concern, but I think I have found it useful to operate with curiosity
Mm-hmm.
and just that. Like, just be curious. So the concentration is not on what has happened, but like you said, okay, what's the backstory? Because the backstory is often very compelling, especially when people do drastic things or sometimes very bad things when, coaches confess. Uh, and so I think that curiosity has helped me a little bit get clarity into the inner workings of their mind. And maybe as a result of that, there was this visual that you showed in safety where there is that fire drill guy, and to me somehow that the way that spoke to me is, okay, you have that cap of empathy, you have the cloak of, kindness or compassion, and you have the shoes of support. And so maybe then that automatically takes over if the curiosity is in the right place. So
Right
although
place.
curiosity is not directly related to the 4.2, the pointer, but I feel like to me it's about curiosity in this.
Curiosity. Okay, sure. No, and your interpretation and reflection of that image is a very profound one. At least I, for right now, I was thinking actually the shoes one stood out for me. Like that is powerful, right? Being able to feel that. Okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Anita. Okay, so how an absolutely very important one, and curiosity can actually help you build that. Some of the examples that as a coach we could engage and conversation. I'm so glad to hear that you're looking to reconnect with yourself. I'm sorry you're feeling frustrated with this current situation. So what is it that you are causing multiple options to come in your way of thinking of outcomes? Being able to acknowledge the empathy, being able to demonstrate that, but also then take the person also forward so that the person also understands that, hey, it's not the dead end, in the conversation, yet ensuring that it is all about them. It is about the journey they want to go. They are in the moment, and hence the importance of being able to demonstrate that empathy in the process. 4.3. The coach acknowledges and supports the client's expression of feelings, perception, concerns, beliefs, or suggestions. And again, two powerful words: acknowledges, supports the expression. And, I think it was Anita who mentioned about, the body language or the conversation that the person is engaging in. And being able to acknowledge that is obviously a very, very important element. Sure. Thank you, Anita. So being able to acknowledge and support the coachee, how they are expressing, looking at their body language, looking at what could be, and here your mental model can play a very important. What are the perception? What are the mental models the person is, engaged in or has? What are the beliefs that the person, or suggestions, and our understanding and experience of mental model can play an important role, both to acknowledge and also support them in how are they feeling at that moment. Any thoughts on this one? Anything that you want to share which worked well, or a learning for us basis your coaching conversation?
I will add something here, Varun,
Sure.
when you said the mental models,
Mm-hmm.
the beliefs and the perceptions. I would say that is very important in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So many times it's like we assume what they meant is this, but it might not be the case. So acknowledging and at the same time, I would say clarifying what are their perceptions, beliefs, calling it out will actually help in the conversations. That is something I have noticed recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you, is there a moment that you want to share, if that's okay, where you may have experimented or exercised this one, and then how was the experience?
It may be simple things like if they mention, I want to know the other person. So I assume that, okay, knowing a person has a definition in my mind. But for them, it was different actually. When I clarified, it is not like they don't want to know their background. They're not interested in their education. It has a something different explanation for them when they said knowing the person. So then I realized, yes, it is like we assume based on our mental models, our beliefs, okay, this is what it is. But it might not be, because every person's experience and their childhood experience or their culture, belief system is all different. So we cannot, it's all, I nowadays I try not to assume things, rather than assuming, just be curious, like Anita said, bring that element of curiosity and just ask what does it mean to them. So it actually helps a lot.
No, I agree. And I think the element around that, this is not about us. Yeah, this is not my journey. This is not my story. It is about the client. It's about the coachee, and it is their story. It's about their journey, and it's about their process that they want to go through. And we are only stimulating and partnering with them in that process. And I think that for me is both that it's their journey, but yet I will acknowledge, I'll also support them in whatever their beliefs and their perceptions, and help them then overcome wherever they need to be able to move forward, and which is where we move to 4.4 in a while. But few examples that probably we could demonstrate. I'm hearing you realize that you've not been hearing yourself, and that's the starting point. I'm sorry you're feeling frustrated with the current situation. So what is the, possible options that you want to come in your way to think of the outcomes? And that is a very, very strong way to kind of address, the element of what we spoke about. 4.4, the last one. Coach partners with the client by inviting the client to respond in any way to the coach's contribution and accepts the client's response. Now, 4 very powerful words in this entire marker: coach partners, invites so that the client can respond, and then accepts the client's response the way it is. Thoughts?
So I'm remembering something very funny. Okay. So I have a very expressive face. Okay. So like very rarely I can actually conceal what's going on in my mind. So if I'm kind of bewildered, or if I'm, okay, this is so embarrassing, it's getting recorded. But let's say at times I have felt that the client is probably cuckoo in responding a certain way. Okay. And it's immediately shown on my face. So I think increasingly, what I have tried to learn is to have that poker face, so that the client clearly and explicitly, I'm giving the message that, hey, whatever you say and whatever you do, if it makes sense to you, that's it.
Yeah.
Because sometime along the way, the client is looking at me quizzically, seeking, okay, am I with that person?
Yes.
And so I have learned to soften my, facial expressions to, like, I think Ramya does a beautiful job of she always looks so pleasant. I mean, like, she'll just look like, okay, I know I can tell anything and you will smile the same. Okay. But then I probably was not able to do it for quite some time. And so to allow the client to completely respond the way they want to and accept it, to me, I think it was important about managing my body language and my facial expression. So this partnering and the invitation and the response or the acceptance is shown through that.
Yeah.
So which means I'll just say, no, go on. It's perfectly okay. And hey, don't try to think what I'm thinking about, because it's you, right? So go on. So yeah. So I think to me that's what this means.
I agree. I so agree. Neha, Ramya, thoughts?
I would say I agree with what Anita was saying, the facial expression. You said it is good that I am always pleasant, but I try to control that actually, because I have this habit, like, the smiling face is always there. Even if somebody is telling something serious or very sad, even then that comes. So I try to control that. And so that, they don't feel like, sometimes, they feel like I took it as a joke. They're saying something very serious. So it's very important, the coach's expressions. Yeah.
True.
And at least try to be neutral. That is as much possible.
Yeah. The powerful element between what Ramya you said and what Anita you mentioned is the idea that we all are on our journeys, individual journeys. And the fact that some of the techniques are working with Ramya, but she also has her own journey and things that she's feeling, okay, I need to be able to. So I think that journey itself is something that we all are on, and we all are obviously wanting to be in a space where we are able to invite without any judgment, without any perception, or without any preconceived notion, and letting the client actually respond without judging their responses, without judging, okay, what is the process the person is thinking through, may or may not align to how I feel, but being then also accept it, and not just accept it by the virtue of us saying that statement, but also our non-verbal cues, our body language, our ability to communicate through our facial expressions. That also is important, and how we can master that art. I think Jaya does it beautifully. In the last conversation that she and I had, and I was like, you know what, you can't figure out that there is anything about her in her mind. It is all about the coachee, in the process. And for me, that profound state, and that's proficiency to be in, is a very, very powerful one. But then I also realized there is also that practice and that proficiency which actually makes the coaching actually more safe and trustworthy for the coachee. And that, when we are able to demonstrate as part of this competency, it, like we spoke earlier, is really the foundation of the whole idea of coaching. Because if you feel trust, if you experience safety, the coachee will open up and engage in the conversation with the coach without the fear of anything. Okay, so some statements, like I think Anita mentioned, and they were really good, but also sounds like a powerful realization. It is. It's about you. You got it. I think you got it better than anybody else. Very supportive of the person's realization, acceptance, and statements that the person is bringing on the table, without really making it about how you feel or how your experience has been, but it is about that person, and acknowledging and supporting that process is very, very powerful. Now, at the end of this entire construct, it all comes down to is being able to do this continuously. All the 4 markers that we spoke about and discussed, it has to be cultivated throughout the coaching conversation, not in the beginning, just not in the end, but throughout the conversation. And wherever we feel that the safety is not there, or the person is feeling the safety net is broken, is being able to come out of the content or getting into the conversation about the individual's concern, but really championing how and what can I do to make this person feel at ease, at, trust the process, and also trust that this is a safe space to share, express, and build on. Have you experienced a situation where, you started off really well and realized that maybe the safety is not there anymore, and then you had to rework on it? Have you experienced a situation where the safety net was broken, not about where the person was fine in the beginning and then later on started to feel it unsafe?
Not really.
Okay.
I think to me it has happened when maybe in between the conversation, I felt like it will be useful for the coachee to move in a certain direction.
Mhm.
And they have shown beginnings of it. But then because they changed track, and that's not as good as the previous thing, uh, I think I end up conveying that, like, so again, I may not necessarily say something negative, but I
Mhm.
think there I have also not said anything, like I have tried to make them go back.
Mhm.
They are not ready.
Mhm.
And because they are not ready and they sense that I am taking them somewhere, uh, so I have felt that resistance,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
there probably that would be an instance of loss of safety.
Mhm. And so if we were to reflect and figure out, okay, what could we do? And I'm using, Anita, your example, and then maybe taking inputs from everybody. What is it that we could do in a situation like this?
So this is a live case actually. In fact,
Mm.
I'm coaching her right now. So
Okay.
she feels that getting married to a rich guy is the solution to all her problems.
Okay.
Okay. So so of course somewhere we got to a point where, like, working on yourself and being ready for the right kind of person is
Mm.
probably the first step to take, rather than
Mm.
looking at Tinder, which she was trying to do. Firstly, I didn't think Tinder was the option if you want to really land a rich serious husband. uh,
Mm.
so there what happened was, because she came to that point where she's like, yes, I think I'm going to concentrate on myself and put this guy
Yeah.
hunt on the back burner for some time, and then I'll come to it. But then
Mm.
suddenly the next session she was again like, no, I'm done. I don't like my job. I just want a rich guy.
Mm.
So I don't think there's any need to work. And I think I'm very pretty. But then the guys I meet suck. And then I was like, but
Mm.
Hindi, like
Mm.
she's a Hindi speaking person. So I literally said, like, mat mari gayi hai. I was like,
No, I'm sure we, have those conversations with ourselves in the coaching. And that is where we do the switch that, hey, it's not about me. I'll
yeah.
go with the conversation about the other person. So how did you then take it forward?
I just told her to think some more because I I just wanted to shake her. So
And if
she's in
today you
London.
would,
No,
hmm,
she's in London. She's in a great job. So
okay,
I let my that's what, not looking at that client's perception.
yeah,
So my perception was you have everything going for you.
mm,
So first settle yourself.
mm,
Uh, or at least that's okay. In retrospect, it sounds very wrong, but but that's what
no,
I felt for her.
mm,
And of course, it was with a good intention because I
yeah,
truly believed, and she started to believe it too.
mm,
Because she
mm.
would literally sleep under the blanket, land up to office late, and just wait for a rich guy to fall in her lap. So then I just told her, uh, I think we are at a deadlock today. Can we connect again? So I'll be
Mm.
talking to her next week.
I am now intrigued to know how the conversation goes. But there are times, and that's also an important point. Like we said, that if the person's not feeling or is not moving ahead, to be able to pause and reflect and let the person feel at comfort and then leverage the tools that are available to create that safety space. Or maybe it's not about safety, maybe it's the person's ability to trust the process and themselves. But in the process, not actually being able to think about uh, that this process or my ideas or my approach. If I was in that situation, vis-a-vis the person's situation, they're different, and I will not bring my own thing, which I think you did it beautifully while there
No,
were
so I'm.
conversations going in the mind.
May I say something? I'm so sorry.
Yes, does it?
So you know what? Seeing your slide, what I realize is the appropriate thing could have been to say,
Mhm.
uh, okay, sure, you're wanting to get back to focusing on getting a great life partner for yourself. Uh, to me, that tells a lot about the focus that you have
Mm,
towards a certain objective.
mm,
Now, where else do you want to use this focus to make your overall life better? So I
yeah.
felt like, saying this could have been a implementation
Mm,
of 4.4,
yeah.
but it didn't come to me at that time.
No, but I think that's a good one actually, Anita.
I'll use it next time. I
Yeah.
mean, if I don't know what space she'll be in, but
Yeah. That's a really good one actually.
because she's so focused, which is
Mm, mm,
true. I mean, like,
mm. Sure. No, that's perfectly fine. Thanks so much, Neha. Appreciate it. Okay, so as we reflect over this, and actually this was a reflection which Anita anyways initiated. So I'm glad there is a sense of reflection. So how are you reflecting over this, Ramya?
I think it is something we need to bring it into practice in the coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Just be reminded of that when we are in the session, and
Mm-hmm.
how can we better utilize these in
Yeah,
the
and because
conversations.
true. And as I reflected over this as part of this session and in the past conversations I've had, I realized that how important it is actually, to be able to, and when we say it's the foundation of the coaching, it's not the cliche thing to say, but it actually is, because you can engage in a coaching conversation when you really can make the coachee feel at safety and at space where they trust you or the process, that this is aimed for their own good, for their good, and not uh, for anybody else. And it is about no judgment. It is not about the individual actually feeling uh, that they can be vulnerable and they'll be judged. So being able to create that as the whole exercise of being in the coaching space is actually at the bottom, or rather the top of the fulcrum, if you were to say, from how we should, engage in the conversation with the coachee. And for me, there definitely is a profound reflection. Anita, I will really love to hear how does the conversation goes if that is, I mean, that's for my learning, to be able to see that how the person responds to this, because sometimes, even for the case and example that I had where the person wanting to lose weight and then saying, I don't have time, and then getting stuck with the fact that I don't want to do anything. Towards the end, we came down to a point where we said that why don't you have the conversation with your, he only engaged where he said, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with my wife because she can help me have a perspective. And we said, okay, then let's start with that. I mean, technically the conversation ends with that, but then it's not an end to the conversation, but because it is not about the conversation, it is about that person really taking that step forward in the process. So yeah, I'm gonna have a follow-up with him and to see how. I'll also love to hear your process and then see how that works. Okay, and with that, I know we are above our time, but we come to an end, and I'm gonna pause recording if I have your permission.